I handed my son Michael a VP position, a corner office, and a seven-figure salary, thinking I was giving him the world. But the day he looked me in the eye and said, "This isn't your business anymore, Elena. Stay out of it," that was the moment I realized I had raised not a successor, but a snake. What he didn't know was that the old woman he was so eager to push aside still held every single share of the company he thought he controlled. My name is Elena Vasquez. I'm 70 years old. I should be retired on some beach somewhere. Instead, I was standing in the marble lobby of Meridian Industries. The 30-story building had my company's name carved in gold letters above the entrance. I watched my son Michael stride through the lobby. He walked like he owned the place. In his mind, he did. Let me take you back to where it all began. The year was 1978. I was 25 years old with a 2-year-old son and $500 to my name. My husband David worked construction when he felt like it. Most days he didn't feel like it. I started Meridian Industries in our garage in East Portland. The space was barely big enough for a car. I assembled electronic components by hand. Michael would sit on a blanket beside my workbench. He played with spare circuit boards while I soldered connections. Those early days nearly broke me. I woke up at 4 a.m. every morning. I'd work on electronics orders until 6 a.m. Then I'd get Michael ready for daycare. After dropping him off, I rushed to my day job. F4. I worked 3 different jobs to keep us afloat. Monday through Wednesday, I waited tables at Denny's. Thursday and Friday, I cleaned office buildings downtown. Weekends, I did data entry for a small accounting firm. Bees. Every evening after picking up Michael, I'd come home exhausted, but I wasn't done working. I'd make dinner, give Michael a bath, read him a story. Once he was asleep, I'd go back to the garage. I worked on my electronics business until midnight. David thought I was losing my mind. "Elena, you're killing yourself for nothing," he'd say. "This garage hobby isn't going anywhere." He'd crack open another beer and flip on the TV. "You need to focus on being a real wife and mother." But I could see something he couldn't. The electronics industry was exploding. Personal computers were becoming mainstream. Companies needed reliable component suppliers. I was positioning myself to be that supplier. Torsoihi. By Michael's 3rd birthday, I was making more from electronics than all my other jobs combined. I quit the restaurant. I quit the cleaning company. I kept the data entry job for steady income, but my heart was in the garage. Abad. Michael loved watching me work. He'd hand me tools and ask endless questions. "What does this do, Mama? Why are you putting that wire there?" I'd explain everything to him. Even at 3 years old, he seemed to understand that Mama was building something special. David grew more resentful every month. He'd complain that I spent more time with those stupid circuit boards than with him. He wasn't wrong. The business was my passion. David was becoming a burden. When Michael turned 5, I made my first major breakthrough. Intel offered me a contract to supply components for their new processors. The order was worth $50,000. I screamed with joy when I hung up the phone. David's reaction was different. "50 grand? You've been hiding money from me?" He thought I'd been secretly saving money instead of working for it. When I explained the contract, he got angry. "You're going to work even more now? What about this family?" That's when I realized we wanted different things. David wanted a wife who cooked dinner and watched TV with him every night. I wanted to build an empire. Those two visions couldn't coexist. The Intel contract required me to hire employees. I couldn't assemble 50,000 units by myself. I found a small warehouse space and hired 3 part-time workers. Michael started kindergarten that fall, and I worked 12-hour days at the warehouse. David hated everything about my success. He complained to his friends that his wife thought she was some kind of businessman. He started drinking more. He'd come home drunk and lecture me about knowing my place. Those lectures usually ended with him passing out on the couch. The breaking point came on Michael's 8th birthday. I'd planned a party at Chuck E. Cheese with 10 of his classmates. That morning, IBM called with an emergency order. They needed components delivered by Monday, or they'd find another supplier. It was a weekend, but I had to work. I called David and asked him to take Michael to the party. I'll join you as soon as I finish this order, I promised. David exploded. You're missing your son's birthday for work? You're a terrible mother. I worked until 3 p.m. and rushed to Chuck E. Cheese. The party was over. Michael was sitting alone with David, who was furious. She cares more about her stupid business than her own son, David told Michael right in front of me. That night, David gave me an ultimatum. Choose the business or choose your family. You can't have both. He thought he was forcing me to give up my dream. Instead, he was giving me permission to get rid of him. I chose the business. David filed for divorce 2 weeks later. The papers cited emotional neglect due to career obsession. He demanded alimony and tried to claim half the business. My lawyer laughed at him. Mr. Vasquez, your wife built this company while you sat on the couch. You have no claim to it. After the divorce, it was just Michael and me. I thought losing David would be devastating. Instead, it was liberating. No more complaints about working late. No more guilt about missing dinner. No more lectures about knowing my place. Michael adjusted better than I expected. At 8 years old, he understood that Mama worked hard to give him a good life. He'd do his homework at my office after school. He'd help pack orders and organize inventory. Other kids played video games. Michael learned business. The late 70s and early 80s were boom years for electronics. Meridian Industries grew explosively. I hired more employees. I leased bigger warehouse space. I invested in automated assembly equipment. By 1985, I had 50 employees and clients across the country. Michael was 13 when we moved to our first real office building. It wasn't much, just 2 floors and an industrial complex. But it had conference rooms and a proper reception area. Michael was so proud. Mama, you built all this, he'd ask. One day this will all be yours, I'd tell him. High school was when Michael really started understanding the scope of what I'd built. He'd bring friends to the office, and they'd be amazed. Your mom owns all this? They'd ask. Michael would beam with pride. She started it in our garage when I was little. I made sure Michael understood every aspect of the business. Summers he worked in different departments. Freshman year he worked in shipping. Sophomore year he worked in quality control. Junior year he worked in sales. Senior year he worked in accounting. Tahuacal. Michael was smart. Really smart. He picked up business concepts faster than employees with years of experience. He'd suggest improvements that saved thousands of dollars. He'd spot inefficiencies that I'd missed. I was incredibly proud. When Michael graduated high school, Meridian Industries employed over 200 people. We had facilities in Oregon, California, and Texas. Our annual revenue was approaching $50 million. I'd built a manufacturing empire from nothing. Michael got accepted to Stanford Business School. The tuition was astronomical, over $60,000 per year. I didn't hesitate. Education is the best investment, I told him. Take whatever classes interest you. Money is no object. During Michael's college years, I expanded the business internationally. We opened a facility in Mexico and partnered with suppliers in Asia. Revenue hit $100 million in his sophomore year. The business magazines started calling me the electronics queen of the Pacific Northwest. Michael excelled at Stanford. He made the dean's list every semester. He wrote his senior thesis on supply chain optimization in electronics manufacturing. His professors said it was graduate-level work. I was bursting with pride. When Michael graduated summa cum laude, I threw him a party that cost more than most people make in a year. We rented the ballroom at the Portland Hilton. I flew in his professors from Stanford. I invited our biggest clients. The celebration lasted 3 days. Edi te shiki kam. Michael joined Meridian Industries full-time the Monday after graduation. I created a special training program just for him. He'd spend 6 months in each major department: sales, marketing, operations, finance, human resources. I wanted him to understand every part of the business. Michael was a natural leader. Employees loved working with him. He had fresh ideas and treated everyone with respect. He'd take workers out for lunch and ask about their families. He remembered birthdays and anniversaries. I thought I'd raise the perfect successor. After his training program, I promoted Michael to junior analyst. 6 months later, he became senior analyst. A year after that, department manager. His rise was meteoric, but he earned every promotion. He increased efficiency in every department he touched. By age 30, Michael was regional operations director. He oversaw our West Coast facilities and managed 500 employees. His salary was $400,000 plus bonuses. I bought him a condo in downtown Portland as a promotion gift. Michael's success made me incredibly happy. All those years of sacrifice were paying off. All those missed dinners and late nights were worth it. I was watching my son become everything I dreamed he could be. When Michael turned 35, I promoted him to vice president of operations. His salary jumped to $800,000 plus profit sharing. He moved into a corner office on the 28th floor. I had custom furniture made for him. The office cost more than most people's houses. Michael seemed grateful for everything I'd given him. He'd thank me regularly for his opportunities. "Mom, I know how hard you worked to build this," he'd say. "I promise I'll make you proud." And he was making me proud. Every single day. Here, Russ. The business kept growing under Michael's leadership. We expanded into new markets. We developed innovative products. We won major contracts with Apple, Microsoft, and Samsung. By 2020, Meridian Industries was generating $500 million annually. I started thinking about retirement. I was approaching 70 and had been working for 50 years. Michael was clearly ready to take over. He understood every aspect of the business. Employees respected him. Clients trusted him. The transition would be seamless. Or so I thought. The first warning sign came during a board meeting in early 2023. We were discussing a potential acquisition. Michael disagreed with my assessment of the target company. Instead of discussing it privately later, he challenged me in front of the entire board. "Elena, I think you're being too conservative," he said. He'd never called me Elena in a business setting before. It was always Mom or Ms. Vasquez. The formality felt cold, dismissive. "Michael, I've seen companies like this before," I replied. "The financials look good, but their management is unstable." I'd done acquisitions for 40 years. I knew what to look for. "That's exactly the problem," Michael said. "You're stuck in old thinking. This isn't 1985 anymore. Business moves faster now." The other board members shifted uncomfortably. They could feel the tension. I let it slide. Michael was passionate about growth. Passion was good, but the way he dismissed my experience stung. I'd built this company from nothing. My old thinking had created everything he was now managing. The second warning sign came a month later. Michael restructured the operations department without consulting me. He'd eliminated 2 senior positions and created 3 new ones. The moves made sense strategically, but the process was wrong. "Michael, we need to discuss major organizational changes," I told him privately. "I'm still CEO. These decisions affect the entire company." "Mom, you asked me to handle operations," he replied. "That's what I'm doing. You can't micromanage every decision." His tone was patient but condescending, like he was explaining something obvious to a child. "I'm not micromanaging," I said. "I'm ensuring we maintain our standards." I had learned through decades of experience that communication was crucial. Major changes required consensus. "Your standards are slowing us down," Michael said. "We need to move faster to stay competitive." He looked at me like I was an obstacle to overcome rather than his mother and CEO. The third warning sign was the biggest. Michael started holding meetings without inviting me. These weren't small departmental meetings. These were strategic planning sessions with our senior leadership team. Meetings about the future direction of my company. When I confronted him about it, Michael was unapologetic. "Elena, those meetings are about operational details," he said. There was that Elena again. "You don't need to be involved in every conversation." "Michael, I'm the CEO, I reminded him. Strategic planning is literally my job. I couldn't believe I was having this conversation with my own son. Maybe it's time to reconsider that, Michael said quietly. You've been doing this for 50 years. Don't you think you've earned a rest? His words were gentle, but the message was clear. He wanted me gone. That's when I realized what was happening. Michael wasn't preparing to inherit the company. He was preparing to take it. He thought I was too old, too outdated, too much of a liability. He wanted me to step aside so he could run things his way. The final straw came 3 weeks later. Michael called a leadership meeting for Monday morning. I wasn't invited. When I showed up anyway, Michael seemed annoyed. Elena, this is really more of an operational discussion, he said. Then why are you discussing next year's budget? I asked. I'd seen the agenda on his assistant's desk. This wasn't operational. This was strategic planning for the entire company. Michael sighed like I was being difficult. Because budget planning is part of operations now, he said. We're streamlining decision-making processes. In other words, he was cutting me out of my own company. I sat down anyway. For the next hour, I watched my son discuss the future of Meridian Industries like I wasn't in the room. He talked about new directions and modernizing leadership. Every suggestion challenged something I'd built or implemented. After the meeting, I pulled Michael into my office. What's happening here? I asked directly. Are you trying to push me out? I needed to hear him say it. Michael sat down and looked at me with what he probably thought was compassion. Mom, you've done incredible things, he said. You built an amazing company. But building and running are different skills. Maybe it's time to let someone else take the wheel. Someone else, meaning you? I asked. The audacity was breathtaking. He was talking about taking over the company I'd spent 50 years building. I've been running operations for 5 years, Michael said. Employees look to me for leadership. Clients prefer working with me. The board trusts my judgment. This transition is natural. Natural? I repeated. Michael, I'm 70, not dead. I'm perfectly capable of running my own company. The conversation felt surreal. My own son was questioning my competence. Of course you're capable, Michael said diplomatically. But capable and optimal are different things. You've earned the right to enjoy your golden years. Let me handle the stress of running the business. I could see through his smooth words. This wasn't about my well-being. This was about his ambition. Michael had gotten a taste of power and wanted more. He wanted everything. Thus, and if I don't want to retire? I asked. I wanted to see how far he'd push this. Michael's expression hardened slightly. Then we'd need to have a different conversation, he said, about what's best for the company. The threat was subtle but clear. Step aside voluntarily, or be forced aside. I left that meeting shaking with anger. My own son, the boy I'd raised, educated, and promoted, was trying to steal my life's work. He thought I was too old and weak to stop him. Awatai. Michael had no idea what a mistake he was making. That night I called my lawyer. Awatai. The next morning started like any other Tuesday. I arrived at the office at 7 a.m. sharp. I'd been keeping the same schedule for 30 years. Early mornings gave me quiet time to review reports and plan the day. My assistant Sarah brought me coffee and the daily briefings. Good morning, Ms. Vasquez, she said cheerfully. Your 9 a.m. with the Samsung representatives is confirmed. The quarterly reports are on your desk. I thanked her and settled into my routine. Reading financial reports, reviewing production schedules, checking quality control metrics. This was my domain. My life's work reduced to numbers and charts that told the story of everything I'd built. At 8:30, Michael knocked on my door. Morning, Mom, he said. His tone was casual, friendly even, like our conversation yesterday never happened. Ready for the Samsung meeting? I looked up from my reports. Of course. I've been handling client meetings since before you were born. The comment came out sharper than I intended. But I was still angry about his attempt to sideline me. Michael's smile tightened slightly. Right, of course. He sat down across from my desk. Actually, I wanted to talk about that meeting before it starts. What about it? I asked. Samsung was one of our biggest clients. We'd been working with them for 15 years. I knew their people personally. I think I should take the lead on this one, Michael said. They've been working primarily with me for the past 2 years. It might be confusing if we both try to run the meeting. I set down my coffee cup harder than necessary. Confusing? Michael, I've been managing Samsung's account since 2008. I hired the team that handles their orders. I negotiated their current contract. I know that, Michael said patiently. But things change. Relationships evolve. The Samsung team prefers working with me now. It's nothing personal. Nothing personal. He was telling me that our biggest client preferred working with him instead of me, the woman who'd built the company they were buying from. How do you know they prefer working with you? They told me, Michael said simply. Last month's call. Jinwoo mentioned that they appreciate having a single point of contact. Someone who understands their modern supply chain needs. Modern supply chain needs. Another dig at my supposedly outdated methods. Michael, I've been adapting to changing supply chains for 50 years. I think I can handle Samsung. Of course you can, Michael said. But why stress yourself unnecessarily? I can handle this meeting. You can focus on higher-level strategic thinking. Higher-level strategic thinking. Code for staying out of the day-to-day operations, which was exactly what he'd been pushing for. The Samsung relationship is strategic, Michael. It represents 12% of our annual revenue. Exactly why it's important to maintain their confidence, Michael said. They're comfortable with me. Let's not rock the boat. I stared at my son across the desk. The boy I'd taught everything about business was now lecturing me about client relationships. Fine, I said finally. You can present the quarterly numbers. But I'm still attending. It's my company. Michael's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Of course. I just think it's important that we speak with one voice. Avoid any mixed messages. What mixed messages? I asked. We're presenting factual data about production capacity and delivery schedules. There's nothing subjective about facts. Sometimes the way facts are presented matters more than the facts themselves, Michael said. I've developed a rapport with their team. They trust my communication style. I wanted to scream. My own son was treating me like an incompetent old woman who might embarrass him in front of clients. Clients who wouldn't even know his name if I hadn't built this company. Michael, let me be very clear, I said slowly. I will attend every client meeting I choose to attend. I will speak when I have something to contribute. This is my company, and these are my clients. Legally, yes, Michael said. But practically speaking, we need to consider what's best for ongoing relationships. Legally, yes. As if my ownership was some technicality rather than the result of 50 years of blood, sweat, and sacrifice. What's that supposed to mean? It means that sometimes the founder's role and the operator's role are different, Michael said. You founded this company. I'm operating it day to day. Those require different skill sets. Different skill sets. Another way of saying I wasn't qualified to run my own company anymore. Michael, I've been operating this company successfully for 5 decades. I think I know what I'm doing. Of course you do, Michael said quickly. I'm not questioning your historical contributions. I'm talking about current operational realities. Historical contributions. Like everything I'd accomplished was ancient history. Like I was some retired founder who'd lost touch with the modern business world. Current operational realities, I repeated. You mean the operations I designed? The systems I implemented? The processes I created? I mean the operations that have evolved significantly under my leadership, Michael said. The Samsung relationship is a perfect example. I've modernized how we handle their account, streamlined communication, improved response times. I'd been responding to Samsung's needs for 15 years without a single complaint. Michael, Samsung has never expressed dissatisfaction with our service. They haven't expressed dissatisfaction, Michael agreed, but they've expressed enthusiasm about our new approaches. Jinwoo specifically mentioned how much more efficient our communications have become. More efficient communications. Translation. They preferred talking to Michael instead of me. My own client, cultivated over 15 years, now preferred my son. I see, I said quietly. The betrayal stung more than I expected, not just from Michael, but from Samsung. I'd personally flown to Seoul to negotiate their first contract. I'd hosted their executives at my home. I'd considered Jinwoo a friend. "Mom, this isn't about replacing you," Michael said, reading my expression. "It's about maximizing efficiency. You've built something incredible here. Now let me optimize it." Optimize it. Like I was some inefficient legacy system that needed upgrading. And what exactly needs optimizing about my client relationships? "Nothing needs fixing," Michael said, "but everything can be improved." That's basic business philosophy. Continuous improvement. He was using business school buzzwords to explain why I should step aside. Continuous improvement, process optimization, efficiency maximization. All fancy ways of saying I was the problem. "Fine," I said. "Lead the Samsung meeting. But I want a full debrief afterward. And I want to review all future client communications before they're sent." Michael's expression tightened. "Mom, that's going to slow things down significantly. Samsung expects quick responses. If every email has to go through approval chains—" "I'm not asking for approval chains," I interrupted. "I'm asking to be kept informed about communications with my clients." "Your clients," Michael repeated. "See, that's exactly the kind of mixed message I'm worried about. From Samsung's perspective, I'm their primary contact. Having multiple people claim ownership creates confusion. Multiple people claim ownership? I wasn't claiming ownership. I was the owner. Michael, I'm not claiming anything. I own this company. Samsung is my client." "Technically, yes," Michael said again, "but from an operational standpoint." "Stop saying technically," I snapped. "There's nothing technical about it. I own 100% of this company. Every client relationship belongs to me." Michael held up his hands in a placating gesture. "Of course. I didn't mean to imply otherwise. I'm just talking about day-to-day management responsibilities." Day-to-day management responsibilities. Another way of saying I should stay out of actual business operations. "Michael, managing client relationships is part of running a business. It's not some separate operational function. In larger organizations, there's usually separation between ownership and management," Michael said. "Most successful companies have professional management teams that handle operations while owners focus on governance." Professional management teams. He was comparing me to some absentee owner who didn't understand business operations. "Michael, I didn't hire professional management. I promoted my son." "Right," Michael said. "And now that son has 5 years of management experience and strong client relationships. Maybe it's time to trust that experience." Trust that experience. Experience I'd given him. Training I'd provided. Relationships I'd introduced him to. Now he wanted me to trust his experience over my own. "I do trust your experience," I said carefully, "but I also trust my own. I've been managing client relationships for 50 years. "Exactly," Michael said. 50 years. Don't you think you've earned the right to step back and enjoy the fruits of your labor?" Earned the right to step back. Another gentle push toward retirement. Toward irrelevance. "Michael, I enjoy working. I'm not ready to step back." "I understand that," Michael said. "But wanting to work and needing to work are different things. You don't need to handle every client meeting personally anymore." Needing to work, like my involvement was driven by desperation rather than passion. Like I was clinging to relevance instead of providing value. The intercom buzzed. "Ms. Vasquez?" Sarah's voice. "The Samsung representatives are here." "Thank you, Sarah," I replied. "We'll be right there." I stood up and smoothed my jacket. "Shall we go meet with my clients?" Michael stood as well. "Our clients," he corrected gently. "We're a team." A team. Where one member was increasingly irrelevant and the other was taking control. "Of course," I said. "A team." We walked to the conference room together. Jinwoo Kim and his associate were already seated. They stood when we entered. "Elena," Jinwoo said warmly. "Always a pleasure." "Jinwoo, wonderful to see you," I replied. We shook hands. "You remember my son Michael?" "Of course," Jinwoo said, turning to Michael. "Michael, thank you for coordinating this meeting. Your team's responsiveness has been exceptional." Your team. Not our team. Jin-woo was addressing Michael as if he was in charge. I sat down feeling like a guest in my own conference room. We're excited to discuss Q4 projections, Michael said, taking the lead naturally. Our production capacity has increased 15% since our last meeting. Excellent, Jin-woo said. That aligns perfectly with our expansion plans. He was looking at Michael, not me. The conversation was happening around me. For the next hour, I watched Michael present information about my company to my client. He knew the numbers. He understood the technical details. He answered questions confidently and competently. He was also completely in control. Jin-woo directed every question to Michael. When I tried to contribute information, Michael would smoothly redirect. Mom brings up a good point, he'd say. Let me expand on that. Then he'd present his own version of my input. By the end of the meeting, it was clear who Samsung considered their primary contact. They shook hands with both of us, but their follow-up questions were directed at Michael. Can you send us those production schedules? Will you coordinate the site visit? Should we route future communications through you? Through you. Not through us, through Michael specifically. In one meeting, I'd watched my 15-year relationship with Samsung get transferred to my son. After they left, Michael was practically glowing. That went really well, he said. Jin-woo seemed very pleased with our projections. Our projections? Numbers that came from systems I'd built and processes I'd designed. Yes, the meeting went fine, I said. I think they're ready to increase their order volume significantly, Michael continued. This could be our biggest Samsung year yet. Our biggest Samsung year. Built on relationships I'd cultivated and infrastructure I'd created, but managed entirely by Michael. Michael, I said carefully. I noticed that Jin-woo directed most of his questions to you. They're used to working with me now, Michael said casually. It's more efficient than having them repeat questions to both of us. More efficient. Everything came back to efficiency. As if my presence was inefficient rather than essential. I've been working with Jin-woo for 15 years. I know, Michael said. And you built a great relationship. Now I'm maintaining it. That's how business evolution works. Business evolution. Another way of saying my time was over and his time had begun. Evolution implies natural progression. This feels more like replacement. Michael's expression softened. Mom, nobody's replacing you. You're the founder. You're the owner. You're the reason Samsung is our client at all. The founder. The owner. Past tense accomplishments. Nothing about my current role or future involvement. But day-to-day account management is different from founding client relationships, Michael said. You open the door. I'm walking through it. You open the door. I'm walking through it. Like my job was finished and his was just beginning. Like I was some kind of business matchmaker whose only purpose was introducing clients to my son. I see, I said quietly. So my role is to open doors, and your role is to walk through them? That's not what I meant, Michael said quickly. I just meant that different aspects of business require different approaches. Different approaches. Another variation on the same theme. I was old-fashioned. He was modern. I was outdated. He was current. I was historical. He was operational. Michael, let me ask you directly, I said. Do you think I'm still capable of managing client relationships? Michael hesitated. Just for a second. But long enough for me to see the truth in his eyes. Of course you're capable, he said finally. It's not about capability. Then what is it about? I asked. I wanted to hear him say it explicitly. It's about optimization, Michael said. It's about putting the right people in the right roles to maximize outcomes. The right people in the right roles. Meaning I was the wrong person for client management roles. Meaning my 50 years of experience was less valuable than his 5 years of optimization. Billy Lawson. And you think you're the right person for client management? I asked. I think I'm the right person for day-to-day client management, Michael clarified. You're the right person for strategic oversight and governance. Strategic oversight and governance. Fancy terms for staying out of actual business operations, for being a figurehead while he ran everything. What does strategic oversight look like? I asked. What would my day-to-day responsibilities be? Michael brightened, as if I was finally understanding his vision. You'd focus on long-term planning, industry analysis, market positioning, high-level strategic decisions. Decisions that would presumably be implemented by Michael's operational team. Decisions that would require his approval to become reality. And who would implement these strategic decisions? I asked. The operational team, Michael said. Led by me. There it was. Michael would lead the team that implemented my strategies. Which meant he could modify, delay, or ignore any strategic decisions he disagreed with. So I would make strategic recommendations, and you would decide whether to implement them? I asked. We would collaborate on implementation. Michael said diplomatically. It would be a partnership. A partnership where one partner made suggestions and the other partner made decisions. That wasn't partnership, that was consultation. I would become a highly paid advisor to my own company. Michael, I said slowly, what you're describing sounds like retirement with an office. Not retirement, Michael said quickly. Transition, evolution, moving from operational management to strategic leadership. Strategic leadership without operational authority. Leadership that depended entirely on someone else's willingness to follow. That wasn't leadership at all. And if I'm not ready for that transition, I asked. Michael's expression grew serious. Then we'd need to discuss what's best for the company, he said. And for everyone involved. What's best for the company? The implicit threat was clear. Accept the transition or be forced out entirely. Step aside gracefully or be pushed aside ungracefully. I see, I said. And who would make that determination? About what's best for the company. We'd have to consider all stakeholder perspectives, Michael said carefully. Employees, clients, board members, investors. Stakeholder perspectives. Everyone except the person who owned the company. Everyone except the woman who'd built it from nothing. Michael, I am the only stakeholder who matters, I said firmly. I own 100% of this company. I don't have investors. The board serves at my pleasure. Employees work for me. Legally, yes, Michael said for the third time. But practically speaking, running a company requires broader support. Support that he apparently had and I apparently lacked. Support from my own employees and my own clients. Are you saying I don't have employee support? I asked. Michael chose his words carefully. I'm saying that employees respond to day-to-day leadership. And for the past 5 years, I've been providing that leadership. Day-to-day leadership. Which was different from ownership, apparently. Different from founding the company and building every system they worked within. And client support? I pressed. Clients want consistency and responsiveness, Michael said. They want to know who they're working with and how to reach them. For most of our major accounts, that person is me. That person is me, not us, not the company. Michael, specifically. He'd positioned himself as the indispensable interface between Meridian Industries and its clients. So what you're telling me, I said slowly, is that my own employees prefer working with you, and my own clients prefer dealing with you. I'm telling you that operational relationships have evolved, Michael said. People adapt to whoever they work with most frequently. Which meant that by promoting Michael and giving him operational responsibilities, I'd accidentally transferred loyalty away from myself. How convenient, I said dryly. Mom, this isn't about convenience, Michael said. This is about natural business evolution. It happens in every family company eventually. Natural business evolution. Like my displacement was inevitable rather than orchestrated. Like Michael's power grab was destiny rather than ambition. And you think this evolution is positive? I asked. I think it's necessary, Michael said. Companies that don't evolve get left behind. Leadership that doesn't adapt becomes a liability. He was calling me a liability. My own son was telling me that I was holding back the company I'd built. The meeting ended with uncomfortable silence. Michael returned to his office. I sat alone in the conference room, staring at the Samsung presentation materials scattered across the table. For 50 years, I'd been building something I thought would last forever, something I could pass down to my son with pride, something that would carry our family name into the future. Instead, I'd built my own replacement. I'd trained my successor so well that he no longer needed me. I'd given him so much authority that he could question mine. Worse, he was right about employee and client relationships. People did prefer working with him. He was younger, more energetic, more in touch with current business trends. He represented the future while I represented the past. But this was still my company. These were still my clients. This was still my life's work. Michael might have operational control, but I still had ownership. He might have employee loyalty, but I still had legal authority. He might have client relationships, but I still had the power to change everything. The question was whether I had the courage to use that power. That afternoon, I made a decision that would change everything. I scheduled a private meeting with our entire senior leadership team. Around noon, without telling Michael, around noon, I scheduled the senior leadership meeting for Thursday afternoon. 2 days to prepare what I needed to say. 2 days to decide how direct I wanted to be. Our senior team consisted of 5 people besides Michael and me. Patricia Chen, our CFO. David Rodriguez, our head of operations. Sarah Kim, our VP of sales. Robert Wilson, our chief technology officer. And Jennifer Lopez, our head of human resources. These weren't random employees. These were people I'd personally hired and mentored. Patricia had been with us for 12 years. David for 8. Sarah for 10. Robert for 15. Jennifer for 6. I'd promoted every single one of them. I'd given them opportunities they never would have had elsewhere. I'd paid for their professional development. I'd supported them through personal crises. Ha! If anyone would be loyal to me, it would be these 5 people. Ha! I sent the meeting invitation Tuesday morning. Senior leadership discussion. Thursday 3 p.m. Conference Room A. I marked it as confidential and requested no forwarding. Within an hour, Patricia knocked on my door. Elena, I got your meeting invite, she said. Should I prepare any specific materials? No preparation needed, I replied. Just an informal discussion about company direction. Patricia looked confused. Will Michael be joining us? He usually leads our leadership meetings. Even Patricia, who'd worked for me for 12 years, expected Michael to run senior staff meetings. Michael won't be attending this one, I said. Oh, Patricia said. She seemed genuinely surprised. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, I assured her. I just want to have a direct conversation with the team. After Patricia left, I realized how unusual my request must have seemed. When was the last time I'd called a leadership meeting without Michael? When had I last wanted to discuss company direction without my supposed successor present? The answer was troubling. I couldn't remember the last time. Wednesday morning, David stopped by my office. Ms. Vasquez, about tomorrow's meeting, he said. Should I loop Michael in on the operational updates? He'll probably want to know what we discussed. Should I loop Michael in? David was already assuming he'd need to report our conversation to Michael. Like Michael was his real boss, and I was just some ceremonial figure. David, this is a private leadership discussion, I said. What we talk about stays in the room. David looked uncomfortable. Of course. I just meant that Michael usually likes to stay informed about operational matters. Michael usually likes to stay informed. About meetings in my company. About discussions with my senior staff. About operational matters in the business I owned. David, who do you report to? I asked directly. David blinked, obviously confused by the question. Well, officially I report to you, but day-to-day I work most closely with Michael. Officially I report to you, but day-to-day I work most closely with Michael. Even my head of operations saw Michael as his practical manager. I see, I said. And when you have questions about operations, who do you ask? Usually Michael, David admitted. He's more involved in the daily details. Usually Michael. The man who'd been learning operations from me for 5 years was now considered more knowledgeable than the woman who'd designed every operational system we used. Wednesday afternoon, Sarah came to see me. Elena, I wanted to confirm tomorrow's agenda, she said. Are we discussing the Q1 sales projections? Among other things, I said. Why? Is there a problem with Q1? No problem, Sarah said quickly. I just usually review those numbers with Michael first. He likes to be prepared for strategic discussions. My VP of sales was coordinating with Michael before meetings with me. Like he was the CEO and I was some external consultant. Sarah, whose approval do you need for major sales initiatives? I asked. Sarah hesitated. Technically yours, she said. But Michael handles most of the implementation details, so I usually run things by him first. Technically yours. But Michael handles implementation. So she ran things by Michael first. I was getting approval after Michael had already shaped the decisions. Pia, how often do you meet with Michael? I asked. Weekly, Sarah said. Sometimes more if we have urgent client issues. And how often do you meet with me? Sarah looked embarrassed. Not as regularly, she admitted. You're always busy with high-level strategic work. High-level strategic work. Another euphemism for being removed from actual business operations. I wasn't busy with strategic work. I was being excluded from operational work. Wednesday evening, I called my lawyer again. Richard, I need your advice, I said. Hypothetically, if someone wanted to challenge my authority in my own company, how might they do it? Richard Chen was one of the best corporate lawyers in Portland. I'd been using his services for 20 years. Elena, that's an unusual question, he said. Are you having problems with your board? I don't have a real board, I said. Just ceremonial positions. I'm talking about operational challenges. Operational challenges, how? Richard asked. I explained the situation with Michael. The gradual assumption of authority. The client relationships. The employee loyalty. The subtle undermining of my position. Richard listened carefully. Elena, what you're describing sounds like a soft coup, he said finally. Someone positioning themselves to take control without a direct confrontation. Is that legal? I asked. It's legally gray, Richard said. If you own the company outright, you have ultimate authority. But if employees and clients prefer working with someone else, that creates practical complications. Practical complications. Legal authority versus operational reality. What kind of complications? Well, if Michael decided to leave and start his own company, he might take employees and clients with him, Richard explained. That's called a breakaway. It's not illegal, but it can be devastating. A breakaway. Michael could destroy my company simply by leaving and taking everyone with him. How do I prevent that? Non-compete agreements help, Richard said. But they're hard to enforce, especially for family members. The best protection is maintaining good relationships with your key people. Maintaining good relationships with key people. People who currently preferred working with Michael. People who saw him as their operational leader. Richard, if I wanted to reassert control, how would I do it? I asked. Carefully, Richard said. Corporate power struggles can get ugly fast, especially when family is involved. Thursday morning arrived gray and drizzly. Perfect weather for difficult conversations. I spent the morning reviewing personnel files and financial reports. I wanted facts, not emotions, to guide my discussion. At 2:30, I walked to conference room A. It was smaller than our main conference room. More intimate. Better for honest conversations. Patricia arrived first, carrying a notepad and coffee. Good afternoon, Elena, she said. I brought some financial summaries in case we need them. Thank you, Patricia, I said. But this isn't about numbers. David came in next, followed by Sarah, Robert, and Jennifer. They all looked slightly nervous. Senior leadership meetings without Michael were apparently unusual enough to create anxiety. Thank you all for coming, I began once everyone was seated. I wanted to have a frank discussion about company operations and leadership structure. The room was quiet. Everyone was listening intently. As you know, I founded this company 50 years ago, I continued. I've built every system, hired every employee, established every client relationship that exists today. Nods around the table. So far, nothing controversial. Over the past 5 years, Michael has taken on increasing operational responsibilities, I said. I promoted him to vice president specifically to prepare him for future leadership. More nods. Everyone knew Michael's trajectory. However, I'm concerned that some people may have misunderstood the nature of that preparation, I said. Michael is vice president of operations. I am still CEO and owner. The nodding stopped. People exchanged glances. I want to be very clear about reporting structures and decision-making authority, I continued. All senior staff report directly to me. All major decisions require my approval. All client relationships ultimately belong to this company, not to individual employees. Patricia cleared her throat. Of course, Elena, she said. I don't think anyone questions your authority. I hope not, I said. But I've noticed some concerning patterns. Meetings scheduled without my knowledge. Decisions made without my input. Client communications that bypass my oversight. The room was getting uncomfortable. People were shifting in their seats. I want to remind everyone that this is my company, I said firmly. I built it, I own it, I run it. Michael works for me, just like all of you work for me. Dead silence. Now, I continued, I'd like each of you to tell me honestly, who do you consider your primary supervisor? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Patricia looked around the table, clearly hoping someone else would answer first. Finally, David spoke up. Elena, you're absolutely the CEO, he said carefully, but day-to-day operations. Day-to-day operations are still my responsibility, I interrupted. I may delegate tasks to Michael, but ultimate authority remains with me. Of course, David said quickly. I didn't mean to imply otherwise. Good, I said. Sarah, how about you? Who approves your sales initiatives? Sarah looked uncomfortable. You do, Elena. You're the final authority on all major decisions. And yet you told me yesterday that you usually run things by Michael first, I said. Why is that? Sarah's face reddened. I just meant for coordination purposes, making sure operations can support new sales commitments. Coordination is fine, I said, but approval comes from me, not from Michael. Is that clear? Very clear, Sarah said. I looked around the table. I want to make sure we're all on the same page here. This company has one CEO, one owner, one person with ultimate decision-making authority. That person is me. Absolutely, Jennifer said. We all understand the chain of command. Do you? I asked, because lately it feels like people are treating Michael as if he's the CEO in training, rather than an employee learning the business. Uncomfortable silence again. Let me be more specific, I said. Patricia, when you have questions about budget allocations, who do you ask? Patricia hesitated. It depends on the type of question, she said diplomatically. It shouldn't depend on anything, I said. I'm the CEO. Budget questions come to me. Of course, Patricia said. I just meant that Michael often has more immediate availability for operational questions. More immediate availability. Because I was supposedly focused on strategic work, while Michael handled practical matters. Patricia, I'm available whenever you need budget guidance. That's my job. I understand, Patricia said. Robert, how about technology decisions? I asked. Who approves major IT investments? Robert looked nervous. You do, Elena. Ultimately, all major investments require your sign-off. Ultimately, I repeated. But who do you discuss options with first? Well, Michael usually has input on how technology decisions affect operations, Robert said. Michael usually has input. Everyone was consulting Michael before coming to me. I was getting pre-filtered information and pre-negotiated recommendations instead of direct discussion. From now on, I want direct communication on all major decisions, I said. You can coordinate with Michael on implementation details, but strategic discussions happen with me first. Understood, Robert said. I looked around the table again. These 5 people represented the core leadership of my company. People I'd hired, trained, and promoted. People who should be loyal to me above anyone else. Instead, they all seemed more comfortable working with Michael. Let me ask a different question, I said. If you had a choice between working for me or working for Michael, which would you choose? The question was direct and uncomfortable. Nobody wanted to answer it. "I think that's a hypothetical that doesn't really apply," Jennifer said carefully. "We all work for the company." "The company that I own," I said. "So you all work for me?" "Of course," Jennifer said. "I just meant that we're all part of the same team." The same team. Where Michael was apparently the team captain and I was some kind of honorary chairwoman. "Here's what I think is happening," I said. "I think Michael has been gradually positioning himself as the operational leader while positioning me as some kind of figurehead owner. More uncomfortable shifting. I think you've all been told that I'm transitioning into a strategic oversight role while Michael handles day-to-day management," I continued. Patricia spoke up. "Elena, if that's not the case, maybe there's been some miscommunication." "There's been no miscommunication," I said firmly. "There's been no transition. I am not stepping back. I am not retiring. I am not handing over operational control to anyone." The room was getting tense. People were realizing this wasn't just a clarification meeting. This was a power struggle. "I want to be very clear," I said. "Michael works for me, not with me, not alongside me. For me. He implements decisions that I make. He reports progress to me. He gets approval from me before making any significant changes." "We understand," David said. "Should we adjust our communication patterns?" "Yes," I said. "All strategic discussions come to me first. All major decisions get my approval before implementation. All client communications get copied to me." "What about Michael?" Sarah asked. "Should we include him in these communications?" "Good question." "Michael gets included after I've been consulted," I said. "Not before." The meeting continued for another 30 minutes. I laid out new protocols for decision-making, communication, and reporting. Everything had to flow through me before involving Michael. By the end, everyone understood the new structure. Or at least, they said they did. After the team left, I sat alone in the conference room, feeling both satisfied and worried. Satisfied that I'd reasserted my authority. Worried about how Michael would react when he found out. I didn't have to wait long. Fafti di Tangor Haliud. At 5 p.m., Michael knocked on my door. Hard. "Mom, we need to talk," he said. His voice was tight with anger. "Come in," I said. Michael closed the door behind him and sat down across from my desk. His face was flushed. His jaw was clenched. "What the hell was that meeting about?" "Language, Michael," I said calmly. "Don't lecture me about language," Michael snapped. "Patricia just told me you held some kind of authority meeting." "Without me," Patricia told him. Within hours of my leadership meeting, my CFO had reported the conversation to Michael. So much for loyalty. "I had a discussion with senior staff about reporting structures," I said. "It didn't concern you." "It didn't concern me?" Michael's voice rose. "Mom, I'm the VP of Operations. Every operational decision concerns me." "You're the VP of Operations," I agreed, "which means you report to me. Senior staff meetings are above your pay grade." Michael stared at me like I'd slapped him. "Above my pay grade? Mom, I've been running day-to-day operations for 5 years. You've been managing day-to-day operations under my supervision," I corrected. "There's a difference." "What's gotten into you?" Michael demanded. "Yesterday, we were partners. Today you're treating me like some junior employee." "Yesterday, you were treating me like some irrelevant figurehead," I replied. "Today, I'm reminding everyone who actually runs this company." Michael's face went from flushed to pale. "Mom, I've never treated you like a figurehead." "Really?" I said. "Then why did Patricia assume you should be included in my meeting? Why does David report to you before consulting me? Why do clients think you're their primary contact?" Michael was quiet for a moment. "Because that's how operations work efficiently," he said finally. "You can't micromanage every decision." "I'm not micromanaging," I said. "I'm managing. It's my company." "And I'm your son," Michael said. "I'm your chosen successor. Why are you undermining me in front of the staff? Your chosen successor. Not my trained employee. Not my vice president. My successor. Like the succession had already happened. Michael, I haven't chosen a successor, I said. I've trained a vice president. There's a significant difference. What's that supposed to mean? Michael asked. It means you work for me, I said simply. You're not my partner. You're not my equal. You're my employee. Michael's eyes widened. Your employee? My highly paid, well-trained, carefully mentored employee, I said. But yes. My employee? Michael stood up abruptly. Mom, I think you need to seriously reconsider what you're saying. I've considered it carefully, I said. You've been assuming authority that I never gave you. Making decisions that aren't yours to make. Building relationships that belong to the company, not to you personally. I've been doing my job, Michael shouted. Your job is whatever I say it is, I replied calmly. Because I'm your boss. Michael stared at me for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was cold. Mom, I think you're making a serious mistake. The only mistake I made was letting you forget who owns this company, I said. Michael's expression hardened. Fine, he said. If that's how you want to play this. It's not a game, Michael, I said. It's business. My business. Michael walked to the door, then turned back. You know what, Elena, he said. This isn't your business anymore. You're living in the past. This company has moved beyond you. Elena. Not Mom. And the words that would haunt me forever. This isn't your business anymore. Excuse me? I said. You heard me, Michael said. This company runs perfectly fine without your day-to-day involvement. Maybe it's time you accepted that. Michael, I built this company from nothing, I said. Every system, every process, every relationship exists because of me. Built, Michael said. Past tense. What have you built lately? What innovations have you introduced? What new clients have you brought in? The questions stung because they contained a grain of truth. I'd been focused on oversight while Michael handled innovation. I'd been maintaining systems while he improved them. I've been mentoring you, I said, teaching you everything I know. And I've learned, Michael said. I've learned enough to see that this company needs modern leadership, progressive thinking, strategic vision. Modern leadership, progressive thinking, strategic vision. All things he apparently possessed and I apparently lacked. Michael, you're 38 years old, I said. I'd been running companies since before you were born. Exactly, Michael said. You've been running companies the same way for 50 years. The business world has changed. You haven't. The business world has changed. You haven't. My own son was calling me obsolete. I've adapted to every change in this industry, I said. I've survived recessions, technology shifts, global competition, supply chain disruptions. I've adapted to everything. You've reacted to changes, Michael said. You haven't anticipated them. You haven't led them. You've just survived them. Just survived them. Like survival was some kind of failure instead of the foundation for everything we'd built. Michael, survival is what allowed this company to grow for 50 years, I said. Survival is what gave you the opportunity to have opinions about leadership. And now it's time for growth instead of survival, Michael said. Time for leadership instead of management. Time for vision instead of maintenance. Growth instead of survival. Leadership instead of management. Vision instead of maintenance. Every word was a criticism of everything I'd done. So, what are you saying? I asked. That I should step aside and let you run everything? I'm saying that maybe it's time to consider what's best for the company, Michael said. Instead of what's best for your ego. What's best for your ego? He was accusing me of clinging to power for personal reasons instead of business reasons. My ego? I repeated. Michael, this company is my life's work. It's not about ego. It's about stewardship. Stewardship means knowing when to pass the torch, Michael said. Not clutching it until it burns out. Knowing when to pass the torch, not clutching it until it burns out. He was comparing me to some desperate old ruler who couldn't accept reality. The torch is mine to pass, I said, and I'll decide when and how to pass it. Will you? Michael asked. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're planning to take it to your grave. take it to my grave. Like I was some selfish old woman who cared more about control than legacy. Michael, I'm 70 years old, not 90, I said. I'm perfectly capable of running this company for many more years. Capable and optimal are different things, Michael said. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Capable and optimal. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. More business school rhetoric about why I should step aside. So what would you do, I asked. If you were in charge, what would you change? Michael's eyes lit up. This was clearly something he'd thought about extensively. First, I'd modernize our client communication systems. Real-time dashboards. Automated reporting, predictive analytics. Real-time dashboards. Automated reporting. Predictive analytics. Buzzwords that sounded impressive but didn't necessarily improve relationships. Our clients are happy with current communication, I said. Our clients are satisfied, Michael corrected. That's different from happy. Samsung told me they wish our reporting was more sophisticated, Samsung told him. Of course they did. Michael was collecting client feedback that I never heard, building relationships that excluded me. What else? I asked. Organizational restructuring, Michael said. Flatter hierarchy, cross-functional teams, agile project management, flatter hierarchy, cross-functional teams, agile project management. More buzzwords that translated to reducing my authority and increasing his. And where would I fit in this new structure? I asked. Michael hesitated. You'd be chairman, he said. Strategic oversight, board governance, long-term vision. Chairman, a ceremonial title with no operational authority. Strategic oversight of decisions I wouldn't make. Board governance over a board that served at my pleasure anyway. So I'd be a figurehead, I said. You'd be a strategic leader, Michael said. Free from day-to-day operational burden. Strategic leader free from operational burden. Another way of saying irrelevant figurehead with a fancy title. And you'd be CEO? I asked. I'd be Chief Operating Officer initially, Michael said. With CEO responsibilities as the transition progresses. CEO responsibilities as the transition progresses. So he'd have CEO power without the CEO title until I eventually step down completely. Michael, what you're describing is a takeover, I said. I'm describing a succession plan, Michael replied. Something this company desperately needs. A succession plan the company desperately needed. Because apparently we were in crisis without one. We're not a public company, I said. We don't need a formal succession plan. When I'm ready to retire, I'll tell you. And when will that be? Michael asked. 5 years? 10 years? 15 years? Because the business world won't wait for your retirement timeline. The business world won't wait for your retirement timeline. Like my continued leadership was holding back progress. The business world has been waiting for 50 years, I said. It can wait a little longer. Michael shook his head. Mom, I'm trying to be respectful here, but you're not thinking clearly about this. Not thinking clearly. My own son was questioning my mental capacity. I'm thinking very clearly, I said. You want to take over my company. I'm not ready to give it up. End of discussion. It's not that simple, Michael said. This isn't just about what you want anymore. Not just about what I want anymore. Meaning other people's preferences mattered more than mine. Michael, I own this company, I said. It's absolutely about what I want. Legal ownership and practical control are different things, Michael said. And right now, practical control rests with whoever employees and clients trust most. Practical control rests with whoever employees and clients trust most. And that person was Michael, not me. Are you threatening me? I asked. I'm explaining reality, Michael said. If you force a choice between working with you or working with me, a lot of people will choose me. A lot of people will choose me. My own son was threatening to steal my employees and clients. That sounds like a threat, I said. It's a fact, Michael replied. I've built relationships over 5 years. People trust my leadership. They respond to my communication style. They believe in my vision for the company. People trust my leadership. They respond to my communication style. They believe in my vision. Everything that should have described me now described him. Tans tust miles tust. So what are you saying? I asked. That I should step aside or you'll destroy the company. I'm saying that fighting this transition will hurt everyone, Michael said. Employees, clients, the business itself, including you. Fighting this transition will hurt everyone, including you. A clear threat wrapped in concern for my welfare. Michael, let me make something very clear, I said. This is my company. I built it. I own it. I run it. You work for me. Michael's expression turned cold. Elena, let me make something clear to you, he said. This isn't your business anymore. You lost control of it years ago. You just haven't realized it yet. This isn't your business anymore. The words hit me like a physical blow. My own son had just told me that I'd lost control of the company I'd built from nothing, the company that represented 50 years of my life. Get out, I said quietly. What? Michael said. Get out of my office, I repeated. Now. Michael stood up. Mom, I'm trying to help you understand. Get out, I shouted. Michael walked to the door. Before leaving, he turned back one more time. Elena, this conversation isn't over, he said. This company is bigger than your pride. Then he left, closing the door behind him. I sat alone in my office, shaking with rage and disbelief. My own son had just told me that my life's work wasn't mine anymore, that I'd lost control without realizing it, that practical authority mattered more than legal ownership. Worse, he might be right. If employees preferred working with him, if clients trusted him more, if the business ran smoothly under his leadership, then what was my role? What did ownership mean if nobody respected my authority? Metiri plainologies boys 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 Clanologies boys 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 boys. But this was still my assets. Metiri's boys 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 boys. Michael wanted a war? He was about to get one. I picked up my phone and called Richard Chen. Richard, I need to see you first thing tomorrow morning, I said. It's time to remind my son who owns this company. Friday morning, I met with Richard Chen at his downtown office. I'd barely slept the night before. Michael's words kept echoing in my head. This isn't your business anymore. Richard's office occupied the entire top floor of a sleek glass building. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Willamette River. The space screamed success and competence. Exactly what I needed. Elena, you sounded upset on the phone, Richard said as we sat down. Tell me what happened. I explained Thursday's events. The leadership meeting. Michael's reaction. His threat about employees and clients choosing him. His claim that I'd lost control of my own company. Richard listened without interrupting. He took notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he set down his pen and looked at me seriously. Elena, this is worse than I thought, he said. Michael isn't just positioning himself for succession. He's executing a hostile takeover. A hostile takeover of my own company? I asked. By my own son? Family business hostile takeovers are more common than you'd think, Richard said. Children get impatient. They convince themselves they could run things better. They start building coalitions against their parents. But I own 100% of the stock, I said. How can he take over something I own completely? Richard leaned back in his chair. Legal ownership and practical control are different things, he said. If Michael has employee loyalty and client relationships, he can effectively hold the company hostage. How? I asked. Simple, Richard said. He threatens to leave and start a competing business, takes key employees with him, poaches your biggest clients. Suddenly your company is a shell of what it used to be. The scenario he described was exactly what Michael had implied. Choose him or watch the business crumble. That's legal. Unfortunately, yes, Richard said. Non-compete agreements help, but they're difficult to enforce, especially against family members. Courts are reluctant to prevent someone from earning a living. So what can I do? I asked. Richard thought for a moment. First, we need to understand the scope of Michael's support, he said. How many employees would actually follow him? Which clients would he take? How much damage could he really do? He claims people trust his leadership more than mine, I said. Yesterday's meeting seemed to confirm that. My own senior staff reported our conversation to him within hours. That's concerning, Richard admitted. But people say things in meetings that they don't necessarily mean. Fear of change makes employees cautious. They might be hedging their bets. Or they might genuinely prefer working with Michael, I said. He's younger, more energetic, more in touch with current business trends. Elena, don't sell yourself short, Richard said. You built this company from nothing. You survived multiple recessions. You adapted to technological changes. That experience has tremendous value. Experience has tremendous value. But apparently not to my own employees. Experience doesn't matter if people think you're outdated. Who thinks you're outdated? Richard asked. I considered the question. Michael, obviously. Probably some employees. Maybe some clients. Probably, and maybe aren't facts, Richard said. We need to know exactly where you stand before deciding how to respond. How do we find out? I asked. Richard smiled. We test the waters. See who's really loyal and who's just going along with perceived power shifts. Richard's plan was elegant. Over the next week, I would have individual meetings with each senior staff member, not group meetings where people could hide behind consensus. Private one-on-one conversations where loyalties would be revealed. Nuxburg. I'd also reach out directly to our major clients. Not through Michael. Personal calls from me to them. See if they really preferred working with him, or if that was just his perception. What if the results are bad, I asked. What if everyone really does prefer Michael? Then we'll deal with that reality, Richard said. But don't assume the worst case is true until you have evidence. I left Richard's office feeling more determined than defeated. Yes, Michael had declared war. But I hadn't lost yet. I still owned the company. I still had legal authority. I still had 50 years of experience and relationships. It was time to remind everyone exactly who built Meridian Industries. Monday morning, I started my campaign. First target, Patricia Chen, our CFO. I called her into my office at 9 a.m. Patricia, thank you for coming, I said. I wanted to follow up on Thursday's discussion. Patricia looked nervous. Of course, Elena. What can I clarify? I'm curious about your working relationship with Michael, I said. You mentioned that you coordinate with him regularly. Yes, Patricia said carefully. For operational budget items. He helps me understand how financial decisions affect day-to-day operations. That makes sense, I said. But who makes the final decisions about budget allocations? You do, Patricia said immediately. All major budget decisions require your approval. Good, I said. And if you had to choose between my financial guidance and Michael's, which would you trust more? Patricia shifted uncomfortably. Elena, I respect both of your perspectives. You bring different strengths to financial planning. Different strengths. A diplomatic way of avoiding the question. Patricia, I need a direct answer. If we disagreed about a major financial decision, whose judgment would you follow? Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Yours, she said finally. You're the CEO and owner. Your authority is absolute. Even if Michael disagreed? I pressed. Even if Michael disagreed, Patricia confirmed. But I hope such situations wouldn't arise. Unity in leadership is important for employee confidence. Unity in leadership. Code for not putting her in the middle of a power struggle. I appreciate your honesty, I said. And I agree about unity. That's why it's important for everyone to understand that I'm still fully engaged in running this company. Of course, Patricia said. I never thought otherwise. After Patricia left, I felt cautiously optimistic. She'd clearly stated her loyalty to me when pressed. Yes, she worked closely with Michael. But she understood who made final decisions. Next up, David Rodriguez, head of operations. I scheduled him for 10 a.m. David, I wanted to discuss operational reporting structures, I began. You mentioned working closely with Michael on day-to-day matters. Yes, David said. Michael has deep operational knowledge. He understands the technical details of our manufacturing processes. He learned those technical details from me, I reminded him. I designed most of our operational systems. Absolutely, David agreed quickly. Your systems are the foundation of everything we do. But you prefer getting guidance from Michael? I asked. David looked uncomfortable. It's not about preference, it's about availability and focus areas. You handle strategic matters. Michael handles operational details. Strategic matters versus operational details. The same division that Michael had been promoting. David, strategic and operational decisions are interconnected. I need to stay involved in operational details to make good strategic choices. Of course, David said. I'm happy to brief you on any operational matters you want to discuss. Brief me. Like I was some external consultant who needed updates about my own company. David, I don't want briefings. I want direct involvement in operational decisions. Understood, David said. Should I route operational questions through you instead of Michael? Route them through me first, I said. Get my input before discussing with Michael. David nodded, but he looked troubled. Elena, if I may ask, is there some kind of conflict between you and Michael? Direct question. Time for a direct answer. There's no conflict, I said. There's clarification. I'm clarifying that I'm still actively running this company. Got it, David said. I'll adjust my communication patterns accordingly. After David left, I felt less optimistic. He'd agreed to my requests, but reluctantly. Like I was creating unnecessary complications in an otherwise smooth operation. 11 a.m., Sarah Kim, VP of Sales. This conversation would be crucial. Sales relationships were harder to transfer than operational procedures. Sarah, I wanted to discuss client communications, I began. You mentioned coordinating sales initiatives with Michael. Yes, Sarah said. Michael helps me understand operational capacity for new sales commitments. That's appropriate, I said. But who should clients see as their primary relationship manager? Sarah hesitated. Well, it depends on the type of relationship. Some clients prefer technical discussions with Michael. Others prefer strategic conversations with you. Some clients prefer technical discussions with Michael. Which clients? How many? Can you be more specific about client preferences? Samsung definitely prefers working with Michael, Sarah said. Their technical requirements are complex, and Michael speaks their language. Samsung prefers working with Michael. My 15-year relationship had been completely transferred. What about other major clients? Intel likes working with both of you, Sarah said. Apple prefers you for contract negotiations, but Michael for implementation discussions. Apple prefers you for contracts, but Michael for implementation. Even my strongest relationships were being divided. Sarah, I want to re-establish direct relationships with all major clients, I said. I'll be taking over primary account management. Sarah looked alarmed. Elena, that might confuse clients who are used to working with Michael. Samsung especially has developed specific communication patterns. Confuse clients who are used to working with Michael. My own VP of Sales was protecting Michael's client relationships from me. Sarah, these are my clients, I said firmly. I built these relationships, I can certainly manage them directly. Of course, Sarah said quickly. I just want to ensure smooth transitions that don't disrupt service quality. Smooth transitions that don't disrupt service quality. Another way of saying that my involvement might harm client relationships. I appreciate your concern, I said. But I'm perfectly capable of managing client relationships without disrupting service. Absolutely, Sarah said. Should I coordinate the transition with Michael? Should I coordinate with Michael? She was still thinking of him as an equal partner rather than a subordinate. Sarah, you coordinate transitions with me. I'll decide how and when to involve Michael. Unfortunately, yes, Richard said. Non-compete agreements help, but they're difficult to enforce, especially against family members. Courts are reluctant to prevent someone from earning a living. So what can I do? I asked. Richard thought for a moment. First, we need to understand the scope of Michael's support, he said. How many employees would actually follow him? Which clients would he take? How much damage could he really do? He claims people trust his leadership more than mine, I said. Yesterday's meeting seemed to confirm that. My own senior staff reported our conversation to him within hours. That's concerning, Richard admitted. But people say things in meetings that they don't necessarily mean. Fear of change makes employees cautious. They might be hedging their bets. Or they might genuinely prefer working with Michael, I said. He's younger, more energetic, more in touch with current business trends. Elena, don't sell yourself short, Richard said. You built this company from nothing. You survived multiple recessions. You adapted to technological changes. That experience has tremendous value. Experience has tremendous value. But apparently not to my own employees. Experience doesn't matter if people think you're outdated. Who thinks you're outdated? Richard asked. I considered the question. Michael, obviously. Probably some employees. Maybe some clients. Probably, and maybe aren't facts, Richard said. We need to know exactly where you stand before deciding how to respond. How do we find out? I asked. Richard smiled. We test the waters. See who's really loyal and who's just going along with perceived power shifts. Richard's plan was elegant. Over the next week, I would have individual meetings with each senior staff member. Not group meetings where people could hide behind consensus. Private one-on-one conversations where loyalties would be revealed. Nuxburg. I'd also reach out directly to our major clients. Not through Michael. Personal calls from me to them. See if they really preferred working with him, or if that was just his perception. What if the results are bad, I asked. What if everyone really does prefer Michael? Then we'll deal with that reality, Richard said. But don't assume the worst case is true until you have evidence. I left Richard's office feeling more determined than defeated. Yes, Michael had declared war. But I hadn't lost yet. I still owned the company. I still had legal authority. I still had 50 years of experience and relationships. It was time to remind everyone exactly who built Meridian Industries. Monday morning, I started my campaign. First target, Patricia Chen, our CFO. I called her into my office at 9 a.m. Patricia, thank you for coming, I said. I wanted to follow up on Thursday's discussion. Patricia looked nervous. Of course, Elena. What can I clarify? I'm curious about your working relationship with Michael, I said. You mentioned that you coordinate with him regularly. Yes, Patricia said carefully. For operational budget items. He helps me understand how financial decisions affect day-to-day operations. That makes sense, I said. But who makes the final decisions about budget allocations? You do, Patricia said immediately. All major budget decisions require your approval. Good, I said. And if you had to choose between my financial guidance and Michael's, which would you trust more? Patricia shifted uncomfortably. Elena, I respect both of your perspectives. You bring different strengths to financial planning. Different strengths. A diplomatic way of avoiding the question. Patricia, I need a direct answer. If we disagreed about a major financial decision, whose judgment would you follow? Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Yours, she said finally. You're the CEO and owner. Your authority is absolute. Even if Michael disagreed? I pressed. Even if Michael disagreed, Patricia confirmed. But I hope such situations wouldn't arise. Unity in leadership is important for employee confidence. Unity in leadership. Code for not putting her in the middle of a power struggle. I appreciate your honesty, I said. And I agree about unity. That's why it's important for everyone to understand that I'm still fully engaged in running this company. Of course, Patricia said. I never thought otherwise. After Patricia left, I felt cautiously optimistic. She'd clearly stated her loyalty to me when pressed. Yes, she worked closely with Michael. But she understood who made final decisions. Understood, Sarah said. After Sarah left, my optimism was fading. 3 conversations, 3 reluctant confirmations of my authority. Everyone agreed that I was legally in charge, but nobody seemed happy about exercising that authority. Lunch break gave me time to think. Maybe Michael was right about practical control versus legal ownership. Maybe I had lost operational authority without realizing it. But I wasn't ready to accept that reality. Not yet. 2 p.m., Robert Wilson, Chief Technology Officer. Robert had been with the company for 15 years. If anyone would be loyal, it should be him. Robert, I wanted to discuss technology strategy, I began. You mentioned coordinating IT decisions with Michael. Yes, Robert said. Michael has strong opinions about technology's role in operational efficiency. I have strong opinions about technology too, I said. I've been making IT decisions for this company since we computerized our first inventory system. Absolutely, Robert said. Your technology leadership has been visionary. The systems you implemented in the 90s were ahead of their time. The systems I implemented in the 90s. Past tense accomplishments. What about current technology decisions? Do you still value my input? Of course, Robert said. But technology moves so fast now. Michael stays current with the latest trends. While I was apparently stuck in the past. Robert, I read technology publications. I attend industry conferences. I'm not disconnected from current trends. I know, Robert said quickly. I didn't mean to imply that you were. But you prefer getting technology guidance from Michael? I asked. Robert chose his words carefully. I value input from both of you. You provide strategic context. Michael provides operational requirements. Strategic context versus operational requirements. The same division everyone was using to justify excluding me from real decisions. Robert, what if I wanted to be more involved in operational technology decisions? I asked. That would be great, Robert said, but it might slow down implementation timelines. Michael and I have developed efficient decision-making processes. Efficient decision-making processes that excluded me. How often do you and Michael discuss technology without involving me? Robert looked uncomfortable. We have informal conversations pretty regularly. Daily operational stuff. Nothing strategic. Daily operational stuff. Nothing strategic. Except that operational decisions shaped strategic possibilities. I want to be included in those informal conversations. Sure, Robert said, though it might be more efficient to brief you on outcomes rather than involving you in every discussion. Brief me on outcomes rather than involve me in discussions. Everyone wanted to give me summaries instead of participation. Robert, I want participation, not summaries, I said firmly. Understood, Robert said. I'll make sure you're looped into technology discussions. After Robert left, I was feeling distinctly pessimistic. 4 conversations, 4 polite agreements to include me more. But underneath the politeness, I could sense reluctance. 3 p.m., Jennifer Lopez, Head of Human Resources. This conversation would be different. HR dealt with people, not operations. Surely Jennifer would understand the importance of clear authority structures. Jennifer, I wanted to discuss employee relationships and reporting structures, I began. Of course, Jennifer said. What specific areas would you like to address? I'm concerned that some employees may be confused about management hierarchy, I said. Who they report to, who makes final decisions, who has ultimate authority. Jennifer nodded thoughtfully. Organizational clarity is important for employee satisfaction and productivity. Exactly, I said. So let me be very clear. I am the CEO and owner. Every employee ultimately reports to me. Michael is Vice President of Operations. He reports to me. That's the official structure, yes, Jennifer said. Official structure. Implying there was also an unofficial structure. Is there confusion about the official structure? Not confusion exactly, Jennifer said carefully, but employees naturally gravitate toward whoever they work with most frequently. Employees naturally gravitate toward whoever they work with most frequently. Which was Michael, not me. Are you saying employees see Michael as their boss? I'm saying employees develop comfort levels with different managers based on daily interactions, Jennifer said diplomatically. Daily interactions that I'd been excluded from. Jennifer, do employees respect my authority? Jennifer hesitated. Employees respect your position and accomplishments. You're legendary in this company. Legendary, past tense. Like I was some historical figure rather than a current leader. But do they see me as their active manager? They see you as the owner and strategic leader, Jennifer said. Michael handles more of the day-to-day people management. Day-to-day people management. Which was the foundation of real authority. What if I wanted to be more involved in day-to-day people management? That would be fine, Jennifer said. But it might create confusion if employees suddenly have two active managers giving different guidance. Two active managers giving different guidance. She was assuming Michael and I would disagree, and that such disagreements would be problematic. Jennifer, Michael works for me, I said. If we disagree, my decision takes precedence. Of course, Jennifer said, but from an HR perspective, conflicting management signals reduce employee confidence and productivity. Conflicting management signals. She was more worried about Michael's feelings than my authority. There won't be conflicting signals if everyone understands that I'm in charge. Understood, Jennifer said. Would you like me to send a company-wide memo clarifying reporting structures? A company-wide memo. Making my authority explicit because it wasn't obvious through daily practice. That might be helpful. I'll draft something for your review, Jennifer said. After Jennifer left, I felt defeated. 5 conversations, 5 polite agreements, 5 subtle confirmations that Michael was right. I had lost practical control of my own company. Employees worked with him daily. Clients preferred his communication style. Senior staff coordinated with him first. He'd become the de facto CEO, while I'd become a ceremonial owner. But I still had one major advantage. Legal ownership. Complete control over company stock, assets, and ultimate decision-making authority. If Michael wanted a war, I had nuclear weapons. At 4 p.m., my phone rang. It was Michael. "Mom, I heard you've been having meetings with the senior staff," he said. His tone was professional but cold. "I had discussions with my employees," I replied. "Is there a problem with that?" "Patricia seemed upset after your conversation," Michael said. "She felt like you were questioning her loyalty." Patricia seemed upset. Michael was already getting feedback from my meetings, building a narrative about my behavior. I was clarifying reporting structures. By making people choose sides? Michael asked. "Mom, that's not leadership. That's insecurity." Making people choose sides. Insecurity. My own son was psychoanalyzing my management style. "Michael, I don't need leadership advice from someone who's been in business for 5 years." "Maybe you do," Michael said quietly, "because what you're doing isn't working." "What I'm doing isn't working." According to the person who was undermining my authority. "And what would work, Michael?" "Accepting reality," Michael said. "This company has evolved beyond your comfort zone. Fighting that evolution hurts everyone. Evolved beyond my comfort zone. Another way of saying I was too old and outdated to keep up. My comfort zone built this company. Your comfort zone built the foundation," Michael corrected. "But foundations aren't buildings. At some point, you have to trust other people to build on what you started. Trust other people to build on what you started. Meaning trust him to take over everything I'd created. And if I'm not ready to trust you with that responsibility, then you're going to destroy what you built," Michael said. Because nobody wants to work in an environment where the owner questions everyone's loyalty and undermines established working relationships. Nobody wants to work in an environment where the owner questions loyalty and undermines working relationships. He was threatening that employees would quit if I continued asserting authority. I summarized each conversation. Patricia's reluctance to challenge Michael. David's preference for operational guidance from him. Sarah's protection of his client relationships. Robert's efficient decision-making processes that excluded me. Jennifer's concern about conflicting management signals. Every single person confirmed that employees work with Michael daily while treating me like a ceremonial owner, I concluded. Richard nodded grimly. That's a classic soft coup pattern. Gradually shift operational control while maintaining the appearance of respecting formal authority. Michael even called me Friday evening, I continued. Threatened that Monday would be unpleasant if I didn't accept his vision for the company. What kind of threat? Richard asked. Implied that employees would quit if I continued asserting authority, I said. Mass resignations, brain drain, business collapse. Richard set down his pen. Elena, that's extortion. He's using the company's human capital as leverage against you. Is it legal extortion? I asked. Technically, yes, Richard said. Employees can quit whenever they want. If they choose to follow Michael to a new company, that's their right. So he can destroy my business legally? I asked. He can damage it severely, Richard confirmed. But you have nuclear options too. Nuclear options. That's exactly how I was thinking about this situation. Such as? Complete restructuring, Richard said. You own 100% of company stock. You can fire anyone, eliminate any position, change any policy, redirect any strategy. Including firing Michael? I asked. Especially firing Michael, Richard said. He's an employee. You're the owner. You can terminate him immediately for any reason or no reason. The idea was both terrifying and exhilarating. Fire my own son from the company I'd built for him. What would be the consequences? Short-term chaos, Richard said honestly. Michael would likely try to take people with him. Some clients might follow. You'd face operational disruptions. And long-term, I asked? That depends on your ability to rebuild, Richard said. You've done it before. You could do it again. I'd done it before. Started with nothing and built an empire. Maybe I could do it again. What about family relationships? Richard's expression softened. Elena, that's not a legal question. That's a personal one only you can answer. I thought about Michael's cold voice on Friday, his dismissive use of my first name, his threats about unpleasant Monday mornings, his claim that I'd lost authority in my own company. I think the family relationship is already destroyed, I said quietly. Are you sure about that? Richard asked. Because once you cross certain lines, there's no going back. Richard, my son told me that my own company isn't my business anymore, I said. He threatened to destroy it if I don't step aside. What relationship is there to save? Richard was quiet for a moment. What exactly do you want to do? I want to fire Michael, I said. Tomorrow morning, first thing. That's your right, Richard said. But let's think through the implications. For the next 2 hours, we planned what Richard called a corporate intervention. Not just firing Michael, but systematically reasserting control over every aspect of the business. First, terminate Michael's employment immediately. Security escort, immediate revocation of access cards, confiscation of company property. No opportunity for him to download files or contact employees. Second, meet individually with senior staff. Make it clear that the previous week's conversations were my final attempt at collaborative leadership. Going forward, authority flowed directly from me with no ambiguity. Third, direct client communications. Personal calls to every major account. Reestablish myself as primary contact. Make it clear that Michael no longer represented the company in any capacity. Fourth, company-wide announcement. Brief, factual, non-negotiable. Change in leadership structure. New reporting protocols. New communication procedures. Elena, this is going to be brutal, Richard warned. You're essentially conducting a purge. Some people won't handle it well. Some people preferred the soft coup, I said. They'll have to adjust to reality. What if they don't adjust? Richard asked. What if they quit? Then I'll know where their loyalties really lay, I said. And I'll hire people who want to work for me, not against me. By 9 p.m., we had a complete plan. Legal documents for Michael's termination, scripts for client calls, draft announcement for company-wide distribution, timeline for implementation. Are you absolutely certain about this? Richard asked as we prepared to leave. I've never been more certain about anything, I said. Monday morning arrived gray and drizzly. Perfect weather for destroying my son's career. I arrived at the office at 6 a.m., 2 hours before anyone else. I wanted time to prepare mentally for what was coming. At 7 a.m., I called building security. "This is Elena Vasquez. I need to speak with your supervisor immediately." 5 minutes later, Marcus Johnson knocked on my door. Marcus had been head of building security for 8 years. Professional, discreet, completely reliable. "Ms. Vasquez, what can I do for you?" Marcus asked. "Marcus, I need to terminate an employee this morning," I said. "The termination will require immediate escort from the building and revocation of all access privileges." Marcus nodded. "Standard procedure." "What's the employee's name?" "Michael Vasquez," I said. "My son." Marcus's expression didn't change, but I saw a flicker of surprise in his eyes. "Understood. What time should we be ready?" 8:30, I said. "He usually arrives between 8:15 and 8:30. "We'll be ready," Marcus said. "How many security personnel do you want present?" Good question. Would Michael resist? Would he cause a scene? Would he try to access his computer or contact employees? 2 officers should be sufficient, but be prepared for potential complications. "Understood," Marcus said. "Anything else?" "Complete confidentiality until the termination is executed," I said. "No discussion with anyone." After Marcus left, I called the IT department's emergency line. "This is Elena Vasquez. I need immediate revocation of computer access for Michael Vasquez, effective at 8:30 this morning." "Ms. Vasquez, is this some kind of security breach?" the technician asked. "Employment termination," I said. "Immediate loss of all system privileges. Email, files, databases, everything." "We'll have it ready," the technician said. At 8 a.m., I positioned myself at my office window overlooking the parking garage. I could see every car that entered. I wanted to know the exact moment Michael arrived. 8:17 a.m., Michael's silver BMW pulled into his reserved parking space. He sat in the car for a moment, probably checking emails on his phone. Then he got out and walked toward the elevator bank. "Head," I called Marcus. "He's in the building. We're in position," Marcus replied. I watched the elevator floor indicator. Michael was heading to the 28th floor where his office was located. He had no idea what was waiting for him. My phone rang. Internal extension. Michael's office number. "Elena, I need to see you immediately," Michael said. His voice was tight with anger. "About what?" I asked, though I already knew. "About whatever game you're playing with, building security," Michael said. "There are 2 guards standing outside my office. They won't let me enter." "That's correct," I said calmly. "Please come to my office." "Elena, what the hell is going on?" Michael demanded. "Language, Michael," I said. "Just come to my office." I hung up and walked to my door. I could hear Michael's footsteps in the hallway. Rapid, angry footsteps. The sound of someone who knew their world was about to change. Michael appeared in my doorway, with Marcus and another security officer behind him. His face was flushed with rage and confusion. "Mom, what is this?" Michael demanded. "Why can't I access my office?" I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "Please sit down, Michael." "I'm not sitting down until you explain why there are security guards following me around," Michael said. "The security guards are here to ensure a smooth transition," I said. "Please sit." Michael remained standing. "Transition to what?" "Michael Vasquez. Your employment with Meridian Industries is terminated effective immediately," I said formally. "You are no longer authorized to access company property, systems, or information." The words hit him like a physical blow. His face went pale, then red, then pale again. "You're firing me?" "Yes," I said simply. "You can't fire me," Michael said. "I'm your son. I'm the vice president of operations. I run this company." "You were vice president of operations," I corrected. "You no longer hold that position. And you're my son, which makes this more painful, but you're also my employee, which makes it entirely legal." Michael stared at me in disbelief. "Mom, you can't be serious." "I'm completely serious," I said. Your access cards have been deactivated. Your computer accounts have been terminated. Your company credit cards have been canceled. Your employment is over." "This is insane," Michael said. "You need me. This company needs me. You said so yourself." "I said this company needed good leadership," I replied. "It turns out that good leadership means not tolerating employees who threaten their employer." "When did I threaten you?" Michael asked. "Friday evening," I said. "When you told me that Monday morning would be unpleasant if I didn't accept your authority over my company." "That wasn't a threat," Michael protested. "That was a business reality." "It was a threat," I said firmly. "And I don't tolerate threats from employees." Michael's expression shifted from confusion to rage. "Elena, you're making the biggest mistake of your life." "Elena? Not Mom." "Michael, the biggest mistake of my life was letting you think you could take over my company." "I wasn't taking over anything," Michael said. "I was trying to save you from yourself." "Save me from myself?" I repeated. "Michael, I built this company from nothing. I don't need saving from someone who's been in business for 5 years." "You built this company 50 years ago," Michael said. "The business world has changed. You haven't." "Then it's fortunate that I own this business," I said. "So it can change at my pace, not yours." Michael turned to the security guards. "This is ridiculous. You know me. I'm not some random employee. I'm family." Marcus spoke professionally. "Sir, we have our instructions. We need to escort you from the building." "Escort me from the building?" Michael's voice rose. "This is my office. These are my employees. These are my clients." "These are my employees," I corrected. "These are my clients. This is my office building. You work here at my pleasure, and that pleasure has ended." Michael whirled back to face me. "Mom, think about what you're doing. Patricia will quit. David will quit. Sarah will quit. The entire senior staff will walk out." "Then I'll hire new senior staff," I said calmly. "Samsung will cancel their contract," Michael continued. "Intel will find new suppliers. Apple will take their business elsewhere." "Then I'll find new clients," I said. "You'll destroy everything you built," Michael said desperately. "Michael, you already told me I'd lost control of everything I built," I said. "If that's true, then there's nothing left to destroy." "That's not what I meant," Michael said. "I meant that operational control had evolved. I never said you should destroy the company." "Operational control evolved in a direction I didn't approve," I said. "So I'm evolving it back." Michael's shoulders sagged. For the first time, he seemed to understand that this wasn't a negotiation. It was an execution. "Mom, please," he said quietly. "Don't do this. We can work out our differences." "Our differences are irreconcilable," I said. "You believe you should run this company. I believe I should run this company. Only one of us can be right." "So you're choosing nuclear war?" Michael asked. "You chose nuclear war on Friday when you threatened me," I said. "I'm just responding in kind." Marcus stepped forward. "Sir, we need to proceed with the escort now." Michael looked at me one more time. "Elena, this isn't over." "Yes, it is," I said. "Security will escort you to your car. You're not permitted to return to company property. All personal items from your office will be shipped to your home address." "What about my severance?" Michael asked. "Employees terminated for cause don't receive severance," I said. "Terminated for cause?" Michael's voice cracked. "What cause?" "Insubordination," I said. "Threatening your employer. Attempting to undermine corporate authority structure." "That's bullshit, and you know it," Michael said. "Language, Michael," I said. "Marcus, please proceed with the escort." I watched from my window as security walked Michael through the parking garage to his car. He moved like a man in shock. Probably because he was in shock. For 5 years, Michael had been the golden boy, the heir apparent, the future CEO, the operational genius. Now he was just another terminated employee being escorted from the building. At 9 a.m., I called an emergency meeting of senior staff: Patricia, David, Sarah, Robert, and Jennifer. Conference room A. Immediate attendance required. They arrived looking confused and nervous. Word had probably spread about Michael's escort from the building. People were wondering what was happening. "Thank you all for coming," I began. "I have an important announcement about organizational changes." The room was silent. Everyone was staring at me intently. "Effective immediately, Michael Vasquez is no longer employed by Meridian Industries," I said. "His position as Vice President of Operations has been eliminated." Gasps around the table. Patricia looked like she might faint. David's mouth fell open. Sarah gripped her notepad so hard her knuckles turned white. "I will be resuming direct operational oversight of all company functions," I continued. "All senior staff will report directly to me with no intermediate supervision." "Elena," Patricia said shakily, "may I ask what happened?" "Michael's employment was terminated for cause," I said. "The details are confidential, but the decision is final and non-negotiable." "Is Michael starting his own company?" David asked. "Will he be competing with us?" "I have no information about Michael's future plans," I said, "and frankly, I don't care. This company will succeed regardless of what any former employee chooses to do." Jennifer raised her hand tentatively. "What should we tell other employees who ask about Michael's departure?" "Tell them that personnel matters are confidential," I said, "and that business operations will continue normally under my direct leadership." "What about client relationships?" Sarah asked. "Michael was the primary contact for several major accounts." "I will be contacting all major clients personally to re-establish direct relationships," I said. "Any client who prefers working with former employees is welcome to find new suppliers." The room was getting more uncomfortable by the minute. People were realizing that this wasn't just Michael's termination. This was a complete restructuring of power. "I want to be very clear about expectations going forward," I said. "This company has one CEO, one owner, and one ultimate decision-maker. That person is me." "Of course," Patricia said quickly. "All strategic decisions will be made by me," I continued. "All major operational decisions will be approved by me. All significant client communications will be copied to me." "What about day-to-day operational matters?" David asked. "The kind of decisions Michael used to handle?" "Those decisions will be handled by whoever I designate to handle them," I said. "Which may be you, maybe someone else, or maybe me directly." David looked troubled. "Elena, if I may say so, that represents a significant change in operational efficiency." "David, the previous operational structure was apparently so efficient that my own employees forgot who they worked for," I said coldly. "I'll sacrifice some efficiency to maintain authority." "Understood," David said quietly. "Are there any questions about the new organizational structure?" I asked. Silence around the table. "Good," I said. "I'll be scheduling individual meetings with each of you this week to discuss specific role expectations and reporting procedures." After the meeting ended, people filed out slowly. They looked like mourners leaving a funeral, which was appropriate because they'd just witnessed the death of the company culture they'd become comfortable with. At 10 a.m., I started making client calls. First up, Samsung. "Jin Woo, this is Elena Vasquez from Meridian Industries," I said when he answered. "Elena, good to hear from you," Jin Woo said warmly. "How are things?" "Things are very well," I said. "I'm calling to let you know about some organizational changes that affect our account relationship." "Oh," Jin Woo sounded curious. "Michael Vasquez is no longer with the company," I said. "I'll be your primary contact going forward, just as I was for the first 15 years of our relationship." Long pause. "Elena, may I ask what happened?" "Personnel changes are confidential," I said. "But I can assure you that our service quality and delivery capabilities remain unchanged." "Of course," Jin Woo said. "Michael was very helpful, but we've always valued our relationship with Meridian Industries as a whole. Not with Michael specifically." That was encouraging. "Excellent," I said. "I'll be sending you updated contact information and communication protocols by the end of the day." "Perfect," Jin Woo said. "Elena, if I may ask, Will this change affect any current projects? Not at all, I said confidently. I designed the systems that deliver your orders. I'm perfectly capable of managing them directly. After hanging up, I felt cautiously optimistic. Jin-woo had seemed surprised but not alarmed. He'd expressed confidence in the company's capabilities regardless of personnel changes. Next call. Intel. The conversation followed a similar pattern. Surprise about Michael's departure. Questions about operational continuity. Reassurance about service quality. Acceptance of me as primary contact. By noon, I'd spoken with representatives from 8 major clients. The responses were consistently professional and supportive. No one threatened to cancel contracts. No one expressed inability to work with me directly. Maybe Michael had overestimated his importance to client relationships. At 1 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. Elena, this is Michael. Michael, you're not authorized to contact me at work, I said. This is my personal phone calling your business line, Michael said. I have every right to call a business. Technically true. What do you want? I want to understand what you think you've accomplished, Michael said, because firing me doesn't solve your problems. My problems were solved the moment security escorted you from the building, I said. Really? Michael said. Have you talked to Patricia lately? My stomach dropped. What about Patricia? She submitted her resignation an hour ago, Michael said, effective immediately. Patricia had resigned. My CFO of 12 years had quit rather than work in the new organizational structure. That's her choice. David resigned too, Michael continued. And Sarah. And Robert. 4 resignations. My entire senior leadership team except Jennifer. I'll hire replacements. Will you? Michael asked. Because I just got off the phone with Samsung. They're reconsidering their contract renewal. I spoke with Jin-woo this morning, I said. He seemed fine with the changes. You spoke with Jin-woo, Michael said. I spoke with their procurement team. The people who actually make contract decisions. The procurement team. The technical people who worked with Michael on implementation details. People I'd never met personally. Techie. Bisi Hetsai Zahas. Techie. Samsung will honor their existing contracts, I said. Their existing contracts expire in 6 months, Michael said. The renewal negotiations were supposed to start next month. Good luck conducting those negotiations without the relationship team they trusted. 6 months. I had 6 months to rebuild client relationships or lose Samsung's business entirely. Other clients seem comfortable with the transition. Other clients are being polite, Michael said. Give them a few days to process what happened. See how many actually want to work with someone who fires her own son. Someone who fires her own son. He was positioning my decision as family dysfunction rather than business necessity. Michael, I fired an insubordinate employee, I said. The family relationship is irrelevant. The family relationship is all that matters to most people, Michael said. They're wondering what kind of person destroys her own succession plan out of ego. What kind of person destroys her own succession plan out of ego? He was creating a narrative about my motivations that made me look petty and vindictive. I destroyed a coup attempt, I said, not a succession plan. Call it whatever you want, Michael said. The result is the same. You're alone now. No senior staff, no operational support, no one who trusts your judgment. I have 50 years of experience running this company, I said. You have 50 years of experience building this company, Michael corrected. The last 5 years, other people were running it while you took credit. Other people were running it while you took credit. Like I'd been some kind of figurehead taking credit for other people's work. That's not true, I said. Isn't it? Michael asked. When was the last time you personally managed a client crisis? When did you last design an operational procedure? When did you last solve a technical problem? The questions stung because I couldn't answer them immediately. I'd been focusing on strategic oversight while Michael handled operational details. Ooh! I provided strategic guidance, I said. You provided strategic approval, Michael said. Other people provided strategic guidance. You just said yes or no to ideas that smarter people developed. Strategic approval versus strategic guidance. Other people developed ideas while I just approved them. He was characterizing me as a rubber stamp rather than a leader. Michael, this conversation is over, I said. Elena, wait, Michael said. I'm not calling to gloat. I'm calling to offer you a way out. A way out. Like I was trapped and needed his help to escape. I don't need a way out of my own company. You need a way to save your company, Michael said. Because what you did this morning is going to destroy it. What I did this morning was reassert control over my company, I said. What you did this morning was guarantee its failure, Michael said. But I can still fix this. How? I asked despite myself. Reinstate me, Michael said. Publicly apologize for the misunderstanding. Blame it on miscommunication or stress. Let me rebuild the team and repair client relationships. Reinstate him. Publicly apologize. Blame miscommunication or stress. Complete capitulation disguised as face-saving. And in return, I asked. In return, I save your company from the disaster you just created, Michael said. What would my role be in this arrangement? I asked. Chairman of the board, Michael said. Strategic oversight, long-term vision, ceremonial duties. Chairman of the board, strategic oversight, ceremonial duties. Exactly what he'd been pushing for all along. So I'd be a figurehead, I said. You'd be the revered founder who stepped aside gracefully to let the next generation lead, Michael said. That's a much better legacy than the crazy old woman who destroyed her own company out of spite. Revered founder who stepped aside gracefully versus crazy old woman who destroyed her company out of spite. He was offering me a choice between two narratives. I'll consider your offer, I said. Don't consider it too long, Michael said. Every day you wait makes the damage harder to repair. After he hung up, I sat in my office staring out at the city skyline. 50 floors below, people were going about their business. Working, meeting, building, creating. Living normal lives where sons didn't threaten to destroy their mothers' companies. Maybe Michael was right. Maybe I had just destroyed everything I'd built. Maybe firing him was an emotional decision disguised as a business decision. But I couldn't shake the memory of his voice on Friday. This isn't your business anymore. The cold dismissal. The casual arrogance. The complete lack of respect for everything I'd sacrificed. No, I wasn't wrong to fire him. I was wrong to wait so long. Me mama hatej. If this company was going to fail, it would fail under my leadership. Not under his. Casual, I picked up my phone and called Richard Chen. Richard, I need you to prepare a press release, I said. Meridian Industries is restructuring under my direct leadership. We're hiring new senior management and looking forward to our next 50 years of growth. Elena, are you sure about this? Richard asked. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, I said. What if Michael's right about the business consequences? Richard asked. Then I'll rebuild from nothing again, I said. I've done it before. I can do it again. And if you can't? Richard asked. Then at least I'll fail trying to run my own company, I said, instead of succeeding at being pushed aside by my own son. That afternoon, I began the process of rebuilding Meridian Industries. Without Michael. Without the senior staff who'd chosen him over me. Without the comfortable assumption that family loyalty meant anything in business. Benny. It was terrifying. It was liberating. It was the beginning of the biggest fight of my professional life. And I intended to win. If you met Quint de coming see, you're compling wonders. You get the kebsies double in taklide for. If you're new to keep you in sin yuzi care of.